Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm taking a breath. I'm really excited for this panel. I think from anyone who attended yesterday from day one thing that was really that caught my attention was the support of sports marketing for women and the sports athlete, and I think it has been a key topic. So I'm really excited that we're on a panel today for women in marketships. Women in marketing leadership. And I think that one of the panel yesterday guest speakers said that for them, for the brand, 2025 is going to be the year of the her. So I think this is a full representation of that, and there's so much expertise and insight here that I want to share with you guys. So let me do a quick introduction. We have Chen as CMO at Wildfork, Jessica Serrano, VP of Marketing at Dig, and Chantell Ghosh, CMO at Miami City Ballet, and Julia Perez for CMO at OWYN, and yourself and myself is Didi Shum, Senior Sales Director at Adsmovil. So while we were connecting this week, one thing that came to mind when we saw the title says Women in Marketing Leadership, we wanted to share that instead of women in leadership, but more of empowerment in leadership, right? So kind of throwing in that diversity and how we can better support the industry itself as women. So for those who are not familiar with the company and what you work for, can you please tell a little bit about your brand and the scope of work?
Sure.
We'll start with this side.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody familiar with Dig? It's a restaurant concept in New York City. All right. All right. Those who know it love it, and those who don't, we got. Yeah. See, you're an OG. Yeah. We dropped it in a few years ago, so the OGs know. Yeah. We're a restaurant concept. We have 30 locations based in the Northeast. It's a seasonal scratch cooked market line concept, but cooked in a French Brigade style kitchen. So, yeah.
Hey everyone, Julia Perez, CMO of OWYN. OWYN stands for Only What You Need. We are a plant-based nutrition company. We are available in over 30,000 different retail doors across the U.S., everything from the Erewhon to Sam's Club. And we also have an omni-channel business, so Amazon and D2C as well. Excited to be here.
Hello, everyone. Chantell Ghosh. I'm the CMO of Miami City Ballet. We are a top 5 ballet company in the country, top 10 in the world. We're just about heading into our 40th year. We have 54 full-time dancers. We employ an orchestra for the season. We are the largest employer of artists in Florida outside of Universal and Disney. So we're really proud of that. And I manage the full end-to-end funnel for marketing, just like you do at any other business, only with different resource constraints.
Hi everyone, Chen, Head of Marketing for Wildfork. First of all, thank you so much, Fernando. Give a spotlight to Wildfork. How many people know about Wildfork first? Oh, okay, great, because I'm in Florida, I think. So Wildfork is a meat and seafood market. We're not a restaurant, and we have more than 700 different products and cuts, restaurant quality meats and seafood, and with a very, very fair value proposition. So very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. So I connected with each one of you individually this week, trying to pick your brains and what we can talk about today. But there was one topic that constantly come up for each and one of you, and you guys didn't know about this until I presented to you guys. But that is that representation matters. So personally, for me, it matters because it encourages diversity of thought. It also gives me the opportunity to have a seat at the table, right? So with that said, can you tell us why representation matters to you, and how does that impact your thoughts and strategy for the business? Let's start this way then.
Of course. I was born and raised in Shanghai, China, so totally coming from a non-English speaking background. And it's actually, it's a long journey to get to where I am today. And I think, for someone who speaking English with an accent, sometimes like I start from a place where I feel like I cannot be a marketer, or I cannot get to a higher level in the organization. Because being a marketer, what do we do is communication, right? So you need to talk, you need to sell, you need to persuade, you need to influence. And, I start from a place where I have to practice and writing down. I don't know how many of you have that experience. I have to writing down every sentence that I have to say before a presentation. And because I'm nervous and because I'm worried, I speak English not in an accurate way, or I will not be able to kind of present or articulate myself. So I think that's starting from a self-doubt. It's tough, right? And I think, but the only thing you can do is just practice and practice and practice again. So then you get to a place you're like, oh, we are just having a chat. We're just having a conversation. And I think for me, it really matters for, it's not about how you look, not about where you come from, what your ethnicity is. And it's really about the skill, the performance, and what you do at your work. So I think that's why I think representation is so important. And for people like me, and coming from not English speaking language place, and I think today sitting here, I hope that will be setting an example for everyone wanted to be, or one day wanted to be kind of at a C-suite level for marketing. Yeah.
Chantell.
I think representation matters because at the end of the day, for me, we all contain a multitude. People can look at me and think that they know my story, but I contain a multitude. And I look around at the people around me. And if you look at me, you don't know my story. I'm a Canadian expat. I said I'm a Canadian girl living in a Florida world, which is interesting. I've got a husband who was born in India, but has grown up all over around the world. So I guess I'm brown adjacent. My brother is a member of the LGBTQ community. His husband is half Indigenous. You are not going to know everybody's story. And as marketers, we have to be storytellers. And how do we tell the story of our brand and make it relevant to the people that we are trying to bring in if we don't understand the multitude of stories? So I make sure that on my team, I have a wide variety of folks because I want them to bring their authentic selves and make the storytelling we're doing richer and to understand how to connect to different communities. And I always tell them, I have strong opinions and a strong vision, but it's very loosely held. So tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me what I'm missing. Miami is an interesting market. We tour and perform here in Miami, which is 75% Hispanic. We also go to Fort Lauderdale, which is not. We also go to West Palm Beach, which you may think of as God's waiting room. We tour California. We go to South America. I have to consider how we tell that story in all those markets. So I need all sorts of different people because from an audience standpoint, if you're in the performing arts, particularly traditional performing arts, you know what your problem is if you look around in your audience. And in order to reach new folks, because I'm running out of old, rich white people, I need to make sure that we're relevant to them. And that's just reality. We have to say the unspoken things. So that's why representation matters to me. It matters to me personally because of the circles of influence in my family and my friends and that group. And I've got 5 kids from the age of 16 to 30. I got enough diversity in my own family to keep me busy. So I know that we need to talk to different people. So if you're going to be a good storyteller, you need to understand everybody comes with their story.
Yeah, so going back to why I think representation matters so much, coming from, I say that I'm a first-generation corporate professional. So I didn't have family members that could really give a look at my resume, put me into rooms for internships. I had to figure that out myself. I also never thought that I would make it to the C-suite. I'm a young CMO, so very recently, it feels like it was recently at least, I remember thinking like, oh, one day I'll be the VP of marketing because I don't have an MBA and I can't afford to get an MBA, and kind of discounting myself. And often I see my team, which is largely made up of young women, do the same. And I think you want to be the change. So just being there and being a strong female leader on the team, I know that I'm making a change and representing something that they can be, so they can look and say, why not me? And why does representation matter as a whole? Because the more women that are in charge of things like marketing budgets and big decisions, the more it's like a positive domino effect. It's more money that gets invested into women-founded, women-led companies. It's hiring female-founded agencies. It's being able to give that woman on your team the pay raise that she deserves. So just having women in power it's imperative to making things more equitable for all.
I relate a lot to what you said. I think what I can add to what's already been said is that representation drives better business outcomes. And I'll just add an example. We open restaurants all day easily in the city of Manhattan, but post-COVID, we started expanding into suburban markets. And when we opened our Stamford restaurant in Stamford, Connecticut, we knew that we were going to need to appeal to parents. And so I met with my chef counterpart, and I'm like, we got to do a kids menu. And they come and they do this presentation of the kids menu. And for those of you who don't know, Dig is a very vegetable-centric concept. And it's like a smaller version of a Dig bowl, and it had like broccoli in it. And I am a mom of toddler twins. I couldn't get my kids to eat this in a public setting. And I'm sitting in a room with parents who are dads, and they're like, oh, well, but moms, don't they want their kids to eat more broccoli? And it's like, yes, but I'm not having that negotiation in public, right? These are the kinds of things that we try and work on at home. And so in that moment, I didn't win that debate. I felt outnumbered. And I've been in those rooms in the past and felt frustrated and shut down. And what I've learned to do is channel that energy into let's just let the consumer decide. Can we bring in a bunch of parents and ask them what they think? And then they heard from a group of 10 parents, my kids won't eat broccoli if it's charred. The food can't touch. And so we completely overhauled the menu at the last minute. We brought in trays. We brought in pizza, but done in a way that was, right for our brand. And that restaurant sells hundreds of kids' meals. So just one example, I think, of why not only is it important for all the reasons these ladies have shared, but ultimately it also drives top-line impact too.
Yeah, and I thank you for sharing that, because I think that people without kids wouldn't be able to provide that perspective, and with that changed the whole business aspect of it, especially for the launch in Norfolk, Connecticut, which I am planning to drive up there just to get kids menu, because I love ordering from the kids menu, because I'm someone who likes to try multiple things, and I feel like getting too many of the big things, I never finish it and end up spoiling it in the fridge. But to kind of wrap up that question, because I think that is important, I wanted that to sit in a little bit. I think that representation mattered because when I started in the industry, I was on the agency side, and I did buying and did planning for two really big brands in the automotive space and also in beer beverage. And I was on General Pop, and I ended up getting into multicultural buying is because I was told I checked the boxes. And specifically in multicultural, I mean I was dealing with Hispanic buying, which 15 years later, I'm still here. So it worked out for me, but there wasn't AAPI targeting. So it was kind of throwing that face in and saying, you check the box, so handle this. So it gives me a reminder in my beginning is that if you don't check your own boxes, someone else will. So that's why it matters, and I think that's why we're all telling the story here. And it helps align with businesses, right? When you can have different perspective at the C-suite, at management level, even down to the funnel, it provides a different perspective. And I think it aligns with the gaming panel earlier, where you try to change somebody's perspective and pull that. You won't get that perspective when you're working with somebody who's like a Gen Z, understanding that younger audience. So that's why I wanted to spend a little time on that one. So the next question was another passion point for you guys is mentorship, the power of mentorship, right? So I'm gonna start with Julia here. Can you tell us why this is important to you?
Yeah, so I talked about how, being a first-generation corporate professional, not having built-in mentors, from the age of 22 when you're out of college. You have to really make those alliances. You don't really have someone pushing you into the internships or getting, your resume at the top of the stack. So, having done that from scratch for myself, I always tried to be the leader, the mentor that I might not have had. And I have had great mentors, men and women. But you want to be the change. Like, what's the point of having the leadership experience if you're not making a positive impact there? But I think another reason why it's so important, and this is the difference between women and men, at least in my experience, is a lot of the time I see the team, the young women on my team, almost discounting the things that they're naturally good at, not realizing it's their superpower. So maybe they're really likable and they're really great at like getting people excited about something and selling people in. They don't think of that as like, I'm a great communicator. I'm a great collaborator. I'm a natural born influencer. They say, well, I'm not good at numbers. Or, well, I don't know how to do life cycle marketing. I don't know how to do retention marketing or analytics, when they're actually doing those things, maybe not in a direct way, but they're touching those things every single day. So they're discounting their superpowers and at the same time not realizing that the very work that they're doing is like, it just isn't the buzzword that they might think that it is. So I'm kind of having to explain to them, like, you might not think you're good at numbers because maybe that's what you've been told as a woman and, whatever your school experiences were, but you also haven't had the responsibility or the experience to try it out and to learn it and to put yourself in that room. And so, I think just being a woman and knowing what that feels like, it's a helpful way to mentor, my team.
Okay. For me, I think that mentorship has the two sides. One is I've always benefited from great mentors who saw me, and I think that superpower aspect is to it. Instead of saying, oh, here's how you mitigate all the things that can work against you, is here how you lean so hard into things that make you unique, that make you stand out. That instead of this idea of you have to make things smaller, is here's how you make all those great things bigger, because you can't get small enough to make somebody else feel big. So lean into the things that make you big, and if that creates friction for you, then you're probably not in the right seat on the bus, or get off the bus, you're in the wrong bus. So really great mentors have seen me and said, you're really good at that, don't downplay that. That's awesome. That is a superpower. And I try and do that with folks that I mentor. I think also the idea of a mentor that challenges you, that says, hey, why are you not doing that? Or why are you doing that? And why are you making, those decisions? Or why are you not bringing other things to the table that make you self-reflect so that you get better? And they're willing to do that because they're invested in you, and you're willing to take it because you also know that on the other side, they're incredible advocates for you. So I've had really wonderful mentors who have been advocates. They're in rooms that I don't get to be in. They're at a level that I'm not at yet, and they go and they're my Trojan horse. So I think that as a mentor, I've really tried to be that advocate, to see where people are being underutilized, underrecognized, undervalued, and say, no, this person should be our succession plan, and we're not investing them, we're sending them the wrong message and we're gonna lose them, or we need to do this, and find ways to be on their side that they maybe aren't ready for yet because they're just not, they haven't stepped into their confidence, they haven't stepped into that superpower. So that Trojan horse advocacy, I think, is really, really important. Both I've benefited from it, and I really try and model it.
Yeah, I think, it just reminds me a recent conversation I had. It's not my mentee or a mentor, that person. It's just a conversation between friends. So my friend is talking to me about some frustrations at the workplace, that she just doesn't feel she's being heard, especially, I come from sports industry. So very often I'm sitting in a room that with all the kind of men's, right? In a lot of conversations. And so she just feels like she's not being heard because she's a woman. And the first question I ask her is, why are you thinking that way? Is that an issue? Because the starting point of asking that question means you already feel something wrong, and it feels you are inferior in that workplace. Otherwise, you would not ask that question, because when I'm I'm lucky enough to be able to work in a lot of workspace that is very inclusive, working with people from all different backgrounds. So I'm kind of very much approached to be like gender agnostic or ethnicity agnostic. So when people make a comment or didn't disagree with my point of view, I never thought about, oh, is that because I'm Asian? Is that because I'm a woman? Because I don't think anything wrong with that. So I think that's kind of the conversation that I hope that, during mentorship, and it's really, really important to kind of having that conversation. And those questions is coming from a place you already have a self-doubt, right? And also mentorship, I think, 2 years ago, I joined a mentorship program of OWYN. And it actually provides an amazing experience. And not only because of the mentor, but also about the community you're actually building with that group. So I think sometimes mentorship, it's like a one way, but actually it's both ways. And also the community of all the mentees support each other, that's also extremely important. So mentorship, I just sometimes always looking at you versus the high senior level of another marketers, but actually also about the community, you all supporting each other and you having that as part of the program. So that's why I think it's super important.
Jess, do you have anything to add on to that? You don't have to. You don't. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure we're on time.
Yeah.
Just to wrap that question up, I think that throughout my career, the opportunities that I was given was by a female leadership, but the biggest support I had was from male colleagues. So what I'm trying to say is that we need you as much as you need us. So it's like allow us to have that balanced conversation. I mean, just imagine a male CMO trying to sell tampons to women. I mean, that would be a disaster, right?
No, the former Taco Bell CMO, Taylor
Oops.
Montgomery, he used to be my boss, and he was the head of marketing at Tampax, and he knew a lot about tampons.
Oops, I take that back.
That's a unique perspective.
No?
I mean, I can only imagine what it's like to have a conversation and explain to them what a period every month is, what we go through. I'll wrap this last question so we can open to some Q&A, so there's interesting. To take it back a little bit more lighted question is, how does digital impact your marketing ideas and business? I think that's very unique for all of you guys. So I will start back over here, Jess, if you can tell us about it.
Sure, that's a hard pivot. So the question is about the impact of digital marketing. I mean, I think one of the things that I've been really excited to take on at Dig is that when I joined, the storytelling that we were doing on social was, I would say, selling, and that was back when the algorithm was a little different. It was a little bit more focused on static, and so it was not unusual, like, go on our Instagram, and it's like, here's our new seasonal menu, and it's like, is that really what people are interested in? I mean, you want to curate a feed that is giving you things that are either sparking your curiosity or educating you. And so we worked with a creator, his name's Gabe DeSanti, and he does those, like, let me come to work with you videos. And I slid into his DMs, and I was like, hey, come to work at a Dig. Like, we need to tell an interesting story. And obviously that piece of content did really well. So then I called him back, and I was like, can you help us do what you do? And so we've completely transformed the way that we show up on social. And what we do now is we tell the story of our chefs, because every single Dig is ran by a chef, and that's very distinct to the category. So I think storytelling has been a big unlock, and it's definitely transformed our engagement on social.
Yeah, I have a couple things to say. I mean, digital is so broad. It can mean anything from, like you said, storytelling, my personal favorite, and then to more straightforward type of advertising, like performance marketing, for example. And those are completely different worlds. I'll tie it back to mentorship here, which is just something that I'm focusing on. I'm actually developing a mentorship program with part of it is because I love to mentor younger women. It's going to be focused on women specifically. But it's also because as CMOs, we really have to keep our ears to the streets. So like, what does that mean? Everything's changing overnight. I mean, I think back to my experience at Core Water, where building micro-influencer connections on Instagram. It's really how we built the brand, and ambassadors in different cities across the US. Well, that was a different time. That was before the algorithm took over on Instagram, right? Now it's all about the For You page and doing what the algorithm tells you to do, TikTok and Reel. It's a completely different, followers are just a small part of how you choose an influencer, for example. Like the way that content is created and shared now, it's completely different. It's algorithm forward. It's not follower forward. So just as an example of like, again, why mentorship is so important is because you really need to keep up, and you constantly need to be having conversations with other marketers, younger marketers, different marketers, diversity of thought, like you said, all around. I wanted to tie it back to mentorship because I do think it's really important. And then for me, working at an omni-channel brand where most of our volume is done at a retail location like a Sam's Club or a Walmart, but at the same time, we have over 50% of our e-commerce business is subscribers on D2C and Amazon, which is massive. It can be very tempting to want to spend on a platform like an Amazon or an Instacart where the numbers are right there, a Meta even. You can see, I spent this, I got this, cool. And it can be less tempting to do things that are, especially with a startup budget, to get a little bit more experiential and do something like experiential marketing, out of home, field marketing. So I think it's really important to challenge ourselves. It's not always the easiest when you have results that you are held accountable for and you have a very lean budget. But that is something that I'm, working on. We're always working on that. And then lastly, if you are in the CPG business, the pre-shop journey to in-store. So someone researching something on an Amazon or an Instacart or a Sam's Club mobile app and then buying it in store, massive. And it wasn't that way 2 years ago when I started to work at OWYN. So I think the theme here is just keep your ears to the streets.
Digital changed everything for Miami City Ballet, and I was lucky to be at the inflection point of I joined 3 years ago, right post-COVID, and literally 15% of our subscribers had died during the 3-year period during COVID when that really impacted live performing arts. So there was a definite understanding that things had to change to build a sustainable future. And when you think about things like ballet, you don't think about a digital experience because it's almost impossible to create a digital experience online for many legal, rights, practical, traditional reasons. So as I joined, I was rebuilding from nothing, and there was a certain amount of desperation of what do we do now because we've lost a bunch of people and we have to build a new audience. So I was given a little bit of carte blanche, still with resource constraints. You work for a nonprofit, trust me, but you can kind of go into your honeymoon period and you do all the big things while they still want you to like them. So we built a new website, we upgraded our e-commerce, and then we started building content. Because one thing that I do have is a lot of beautiful visual content. I have 54 sexy young dancers that have muscles in places I didn't know muscles existed, and a beautiful art form. So we shifted almost all of our top of funnel budget away from things like a $10,000 like Miami Herald ad or a billboard, which I was like hoping people might see, to content. Paid search, paid social was new. We were doing video. We started working with the Andy Warhol Museum to create content. And we had gorgeous dancers. And then we just started working around all the traditional roadblocks. I can't use the music that we play at a show because the orchestra won't allow us to. But guess what? Most of our music is from dead guys, so it's a lot of the stuff's in public domain. So I started just going rogue, and I'm saying this because I just kind of ignored the roadblocks, and I'm used to dealing with curmudgeonly production directors and people that I just be like, oh no, I got a solution for that. I got a guy. I got a solution, and we went rogue and kind of. I just went past all the objections, and first year we had 25% year-over-year revenue growth. That's a lot. That's a lot. Second year, 25% year-over-year revenue growth. Next year, I'm saying please do not expect that because, again, we getting to a certain cent, but digital changed everything for us, leaning into all of our content, paid search, paid social. Not only that, is the average age of my attendee when I started was 68 years old. 68 years old. Now it's in low 50s. And in Miami, it's actually the lowest. It's in the 40s. So, I'm like, yay, people that might be around that I'm not going to be facing this. There's no comeback campaign that gets dead people to come to the ballet. I mean, that's just reality. So digital changed everything, but I kind of had to just treat my entire team like an agency within the ballet that knew better than anybody. I said, you all have forgotten more about ballet than I will ever know, like clearly not a ballerina. But I have forgotten more about marketing than you'll know. So you're just gonna have to get on the marketing bus and go for a ride and write the checks, and they did.
You have anything at that? We have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. And I think, when speaking about digital, you can imagine how many times I've been in the boardrooms asking about why you spend so much on digital, but our core business actually is in the store. But digital is online and offline. So digital can drive physical experience and driving traffic to the stores. So I think very often it's like digital is only online, but that's totally wrong. And it's omni-channel, it's an experience. And last one is digital. Sometimes like when we're speaking about digital, there's a lot of numbers that you can put out there. And the numbers tell, but actually the core is about the community and how people talk about you. It's about the people behind those numbers. So that's.
Do we have time for questions? Awesome. Right.
I own Factory 360, one of the only Latina experiential agencies. And with this did not earn it movement, I ask a lot of clients, which is a horrible movement. I'll agree on that. I ask clients all the time, what are you seeing on the corporate side? Is there support from executive side to continue to believe in representation and inclusivity? And I'm curious, what are you guys seeing from your end? Do you think I believe, and I hope that it really is a political versus corporate. I do believe. I know some companies are scrubbing their websites of D&I things, which is just insanity to me. But curious what your perspectives are on what you're seeing.
I work at a startup, so I don't know if one of Dig's a little bigger, and Wild Fork. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think, at WifeWork, we have very, very diverse workspace. And because our mother company from Brazil, and one of the recent conversation, we're sitting in the boardroom and we're talking about Easters and cooking, and we realized only one Americans on the table, and we all come from different, kind of background and different countries. So I would say, diverse is super important because especially when I was hiring people, you don't want to only build a team that looks like you, speaks like you, and coming from the same background, right? So diversity is so important to encourage like different voices on the table, and that's how creativity works. So I think, I do think inclusivity, diversity is super important, but I think, right now at a workspace, it's not about what you say, it's about what you do. I don't mind the company doesn't have a section talking about, equality, inclusivity, but you need to looking at their boardroom, who is on the table, right?
Yeah, I would agree. Personally, it doesn't matter to me if it's on like a website or anything. It's like, am I going to be considered for that role? Are you going to pay me? Like, not just pay me, are you going to really pay me? And is there going to be, equity or certain bonuses? Like, don't just, give me a seat at the table, but then it's like a half seat. Like, you're like sitting on the end falling off, So I think it's less about the optics and more about just like, the people that you see. I'll say at OWYN, like our CFO is a female, first generation in the US. So that's always cool.
I operate in the world of receipts. So as a Florida-based organization, we have some challenges about officially putting out positions at anything, doing training, saying anything, doing anything. It's Florida. At the same time, we're an arts organization, and arts organizations, as a rule, lean into diversity because we recognize that the more voices you have at the table, the better stories you can tell. And we're led by, a Latina artistic director, a person of color who's our executive director. Half of our company are dancers of color. That is incredibly unusual in the ballet world because it takes, 10, 15 years to make a ballet dancer, and opportunities are sometimes few and far between for people of color. So we're not very loud and forward with our messaging, and we've had to be mindful about that because it just puts us into the crosshairs that have nothing to do with ballet and the art form and what we're trying to do. But we would ignore diversity at our peril. We are trying to speak to a largely Hispanic community that, as a rule, historically has not cared much about the performing arts, they care about education and business, but we're trying to bring our 75% Hispanic community into the ballet. We are trying to bring all of the newcomers who have come from the Northeast. We've had 20% population growth in South Florida, and I'm still trying to figure out who are those people? Like who are they? Where are they? How do I get a hold of them? They're coming, but it's, the data's light. So we really build it into the DNA. We've got very diverse teams on the administrative side. I'm trying to match my team and my campaigns and the voice we use to our community. So it's built in, and we have receipts. I've got, actually, my t-shirt has all our choreographers from this past season on, and we have 4 new works. And my shoes. It's all about living the brand. But, we did 4 premieres, and all of those premieres were people of color and or women. And that's where money goes. We pay those choreographers, and they get royalties. And so that's where we focus. We focus on how is it relevant to the ballet, and do we build it in, not necessarily the statements we're putting out there. And we invest money. Show me your budget, show me what's on your calendar, I'll tell you what you actually are, you're standing for, and we've got receipts, so I'm always pretty proud of that.
I'm gonna apologize. I'm pretty sure New Yorkers are the one that's moving down here, so I apologize for the traffic.
All the New Yorkers. Thank you for buying all the premium tickets at the highest dynamically priced rates.
But I think that we're in for time today, so thank you guys so much. Thank you, everyone on stage.